Right, we're turning our attention to hurling this weekend. Ballybacon-Grange are up against Ardmore. That's Tibbs Ballybacon-Grange are up ardmore Ardmore in the GA Munster Junior Hurling Club Championship final on Sunday, the 3rd of December. For exclusive content and behind-the-scenes action throughout the AIB, GAA and Camogie Club Championships, follow AIB GAA on both Facebook, Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat as well. Ardmore against Ballybacon-Grange takes place in Mallow at 1:30 p.m. And I'm delighted to say we've got Brendan Cummins live by video link this morning. Brendan, how you doing?
Morning, guys. How's it going?
Yeah, pretty good.
Brendan, how are you?
Actually, great, Alan.
I was saying over the last couple of days that this section of the club championship is great because we get to talk to people like you, and Moy are playing Gael Talk, so it's like the O'Shea's up against Sean Kavanagh, and actually the stories now that we're getting from these clubs, it's an opportunity for these clubs to have a moment of sunshine and a moment in the spotlight, and really this is fundamentally what everybody gets involved in GAA about for the first place.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a great opportunity for us to showcase our club. I was talking to Seamus Prendergast yesterday at the media event at AIB have run in Croke Park, and he was saying exactly the same thing. You know, at our age, I suppose we're looking at facing in against each other when we're very proud of what our clubs have achieved this year. I mean, the Ballybacon story, we're relegated down from senior to intermediate down to junior, and last year we lost a county junior final against Killadangan by a point in extra time, and you know, you just kind of feel, God, are we going to get bogged down now in junior hurling? And then this year the story is we beat Tumivara in the county final. First time ever a club in 90 years has won a senior club county title, and we just then ended up beating St. Catherine's, the Cork champions, and here we are. And it's a massive task for us to try to beat Ardmore because they've done really, really well. But at the same time, you know, the kids around the parish are wearing the jerseys, the bobble hats, they're sold out from O'Neill's, you know. So look, it's just fantastic, and we're hoping that we can leave memories in these kids that'll maybe future-proof our club and get the next generation inspired to wearing the Ballybacon jersey, and I think that's what it's all about.
What's the changing room like after those couple of big games that you've just talked about, and how would you compare and contrast that with the changing room after winning an All-Ireland, for example?
Well, I think the full-time whistle in the county final was really, really emotional. I know I was in tears inside the goals. You know, my wife and two kids came down to the goals to me when it was over. A lot of the players around the pitch, actually, there was no throwing of helmets up in the air like the hats situation or guys jumping on each other with excitement. There was just kind of a stunned look around the pitch, and really later on that night that stunned look changed in Jones to an awful lot of celebration and singing. But it was amazing. I must say, it was relief was my overriding emotion when the full-time whistle went, because I thought it might never happen, you know, and you just feel that the guys around you that you played with, I won't say all my life because a lot of the players weren't born when I started playing hurling first. I'm at that kind of age now, so no, it was. And then, I mean, the other layer to this as well is that on the full-time whistle, a lot of the guys who would have trained me, like John English and Eamon Gorman, came onto the pitch, the older generation of the club, and to look into their eyes, you really see how much it means to them, you know, and you feel you've done something special, and that was a great emotion afterwards as well.
Brendan, Allen here. I was going to say, I'm intrigued by you know, at your age, having that kind of joy and happiness out of it. Is that what motivates you to keep going? The coming together, the community, giving something back maybe from where you've been over the years, and seeing all that emotion on everyone's faces?
Well, it's always been a big thing for me, Alan. I suppose the more you play Munster Ireland, where you come from in Tiptown or Ballybacon, you appreciate that it's in the people's DNA what you're doing at a county level, and it's just fantastic that you can bring that excitement then to some small part into your community, in your parish. And again, you can, I know, try to inspire a next generation of players to keep the thing alive. And in a club like Ballybacon, obviously, you know, we struggle sometimes for numbers. We kind of look at, if somebody's pregnant in the parish, you're looking to see, is it going to be a boy or a girl and early stuff, you know, to see if the Camogie or the hurling team are going to be looked after into the future. So like that, you know, I had huge support from people around the parish, obviously, not playing through bad times and through good. And now it's just fantastic that they're going through the good times and I'm able to experience with them.
Yeah, I often wonder when players have as good and as long and as successful an inter-county career, is there that little bit of guilt down through the years that actually, do you know what, I should be doing a little bit more for the club, that now at the end of your career you actually do get the chance to not make amends, but you know what I mean, just make sure that everybody feels like you've done your duty everywhere?
Yeah, it is. I mean, obviously, when you're in inter-county game, back when I was playing, it was 4 or 5 times a week. The demands are probably an awful lot more now on players with the micromanagement that's going on in the current game. But certainly, when I retired out of Tipperary on that Saturday night below Nolan Park, when I came back down to the club on the Tuesday night to get involved with the underage structure, I heard they're going well at the underage. When I walked in through the gates in 2013, there was over 50 kids inside in the pitch. There was people down there I'd never really seen around the parish. It's a new world for me. And you're right, I've been integrated into that underage structure. I'm in charge of the under-10 team now with the last number of years. And you are trying to do all you can to give back to the club, because I really appreciated what was being done while I was away, because I was really blinded. Inter-county is a very selfish kind of a place to be living in, because if you're not at the standard, you're dumped, and it's as simple as that. So you do have to be looking after yourself. And the club, I suppose, sometimes can come secondary as much as you try to make sure you're looking after it. So, it's just a fantastic opportunity for me now that we have a group of players who are at a standard or level in junior hurling where we had a chance of winning something. We've done that. No matter what happens after the game in Mallow on Sunday, we're intermediate next year, which is a huge step forward for us and something else to be excited about in 2018. And certainly when you say in the twilight of my career, I'm kind of hoping I'll have another few years left. My young fella is 9. The plan is to try to play with him, and so if I can get another 10 years out of it, although we've a good under 6 goalie at the moment, so I'm hanging on until he gets right.
We had a local in one of our clubs, Brendan, who played. He was still in goals till he was 55 anyway, so there's certainly a couple of years left in you yet. When you retired, and you talk about Nolan Park and downing the Tipperary scenario for yourself, all the highs and the pressure, maybe playing for Tip week in, week out, and playing in All-Ireland finals and trying to win All-Irelands. When you went back to the club, was your plan to go back coaching and maybe help out, or were you kind of pushed back into it, or is that what you wanted? Was the passion still there to and the motivation to go back and play for a number of years? Because recently I was just reading some stuff about Eric Cantona, and one of the key things he says in one of his interviews is the passion must be there or else you stop, and his passion stopped. So I'm just wondering, was that passion there, or had it to be reignited to go and play with the club?
No, the passion, I must say, is always there. I'm lucky. I don't know what it is inside me. I've a massive fire that I want to keep playing for as long as I can. I speak to people who have retired out of club, and they're above in the stand, and it's really the doomsday scenario, I think, Alan, for me, is that I can't play anymore. And really, when I finished with Tip, the consolation I had was that now I'm going to focus everything I have in my body, like I had with Tip, into my club, and that's exactly where it's at. I don't
enjoy
see
it as
myself.
well.
There's no doubt.
You've got to be enjoying it, like.
Yeah, I'm absolutely enjoying it. But the enjoyment for me in a twisted way is always the challenge. Like, can you be better than you were last year? And I'm no different now at 42 than I was at 22. And that's the challenge. And I check the diaries, I check all the stuff that I always did in inter-county career. They're all still happening now. I still have my challenges and goals and all those kind of things that I keep inside my head. So when I go training, or when I'm during the week, to make sure I'm trying to eat properly, all those kind of things are still there. And I think I have habits that were embedded in my brain from the inter-county level, and I've just carried them on into club level. And the last thing I want, to be honest with you, is that somebody goes to Mallow or goes to a match and says, geez, your man is slipping. Inside my head, that is the last thing I want somebody to say when they're leaving a match. So that motivates me and drives me and keeps me really, really competitive and on my toes. And I'm hoping that my body holds up as long as my brain wants to and my desire wants to. And that sometimes can be the fear. I don't train as often as I used to. I do an awful lot more stretch and all the stuff that you're supposed to be doing. But when I train 2 nights in a row, I'll tell you, my body absolutely aches. So
with your experience, Brendan, of what you've achieved, do guys look up to you for leadership, or do you look to them to set a good standard in leadership within the group? Because it is amateur, and I always thought about this myself. If I went back playing junior rugby or back to my club in Clanwilliam, would they expect me to come back and drive the standards and do all the team talks and tell this guy you're not on time of training and you need to do this, you need to do that? Or have you kind of seamlessly kind of slipped back into that scenario, or are you the one driving it on?
I don't know. I think your responsibility, if you're one of the older heads in any group, is not so much sometimes to tell the group the answer, is to help them to get there. I think, I could stand up inside the dressing room my last years at Tipperary, or even now inside the Ballybacon, and say, this is what we need to do, lads. But now I challenge the group and I say, what do we need to do next, lads? We're going to get a bus down to the game next weekend. It's the first time ever. We had a chat about it. I just threw it out to the group, lads, what do you think? And they were looking at me, and they know I don't give solutions for all the world. I do prompt and try to get people talking, and we decided we would go by bus, and it was a collective decision rather than one or two guys or me. And certainly before matches in the dressing room, I might say a few words, but I'm certainly encouraging, we'll say, the younger guys, because it obviously means a lot to them, and they have to take responsibility on the pitch. And I think if I can create or help create an environment off the pitch that allows them to take responsibility, it'll make it easier for them on the field then to start making decisions for themselves. Because in reality, you know yourself, when you're in the heat of battle, you have to make a decision yourself. You can't stop the game and say, what do we do next, lads? So it's to try to help educate the players to get to that level, I think, is my role as one of the senior guys in there. And obviously being the goalkeeper and hitting a few frees and all, there is an added responsibility onto me to try to be a leader on the pitch. And I think that's what my aim is every time I put on a jersey. So there's no added pressure to that. It's just the natural environment that I'm used to.
Can I just ask you one question about that reintegration from intercounty into the club scene? There's kind of a general acceptance that that's what's going to happen to most players when they finish their intercounty careers. But there's also, I'd say now, a trend where players are just stopping playing the game who reach that very high level at intercounty level because they've been so flogged by the system in many cases, like their bodies break down and they actually don't have the wherewithal to go back to the club game. For you, was there any sense of internal awkwardness about how you might be received when you went back because you'd been away and kind of corralled in that intercounty bubble for so long?
No, absolutely not. No, there wasn't. I mean, anytime I wasn't involved with Tip, it isn't as if I hadn't been seen down the pitch or been at club games or underage games, or I hadn't missed any game for my club up along the line because of Tipperary. And I think there's also a distinction to be made. Like, I was very fortunate when I left Tipperary. It was my decision to go. I had kind of planned it out for a couple of years in advance that this is going to happen, and I kind of had an exit strategy, if you like. But I can imagine an inter-county player in the coming weeks and months who feels they have something to offer their team next year. They've sacrificed everything in the previous years to get to a stage where they feel they're ready to take the next level. And then a manager rings them and says, look, you're not part of my plans for 2018. And then that player can get a little bit disillusioned with everything to do with GAA or sport. And they start to say, well, I've invested everything I have in this. Do I really want to go back into the club? And, it takes a piece away from them. So I didn't have that experience. I was fortunate, I said, that I got to pull the plug myself and go back to the club. But I can certainly appreciate how some players will give everything they have, and then they feel empty, and then they feel they've no more to give. But I think that's where the important part, if you can connect with your parish and your club, that they can rejuvenate you. They can say to you, look, you're one of our own. There's people going to matches now in our parish that wouldn't have gone to hurling matches before because the adventure we're on now. And that excites me and would excite all the players around me. So I think you have to find a grow or a love for the game again if that happens, Jen. It's sad to hear that some players will go down that road, but I can absolutely appreciate where they'd be coming from. Yeah,
no, fair enough. That's a great answer to that. I just want to, Oisín was talking to Seamus Prendergast yesterday, who obviously is...
That's the Ardmore, Oisín.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My mistake, I think. I got a bit of dodgy info. Former Waterford forward Seamus Prendergast was speaking to Oisín at the AIB Munster Junior Hurling Club final launch between Knocknagree, it says here, and Ballybacon-Grange.
And would you like to see that kind of enjoyment put back into county level? Because maybe guys, they do it but they don't enjoy it, and it's not a good thing. You'd like to see them enjoy it more.
Yeah, I think it's gone too serious. I think there's fellas and they're barely working at this stage. The hurling is their job almost. And I think to bring the enjoyment back, I suppose you see every team is training harder and harder every year. So if you cut it back, you'll fall behind. So that's I suppose that's the reason why it's getting harder and harder every year. But I think there should be something brought in to limit the amount of training sessions for the county teams. Maybe to 4 or 5 in the week. That'd definitely be plenty. If you wouldn't be fit training 4 times a week, the professional teams are barely doing that. So I think there should be some kind of a limit brought in on it. And seeing that I'm a club player now, something to get the club championships played a bit more briskly in the summertime when the weather is good, not to be waiting until this time of year in the slab and muck, to be kind of dogging it out in the field,
Are you glad that the system is coming in next year whereby everyone knows their calendar. Everyone knows that they're going to have games on X, Y, and Z days. They know that the games are going to be like, 4 weeks in a row and maybe a rest week. Is that a good thing?
I think it is, yeah. Look, if they wants to stick to the calendar, I suppose the county teams will always stick to the calendar, but the clubs, they set out a calendar for the county board sets out a calendar for the clubs, and it's never really stuck to, and you can't plan anything when you know that the calendar it won't be stuck to, so I think if they could get something brought in that is seriously, and you can look at it and say, look, we're training for a month of May for the championship, and then we're back again in August, that'd be something that would be good for the club player, I think.
Oisín's going to kill me. It is, of course, Ardmore, Seamus Prendergast talking to Ardmore's Oisín Langan. So before we move on, right, I want to talk about you two actually used to play underage football against each other. Is that right, Brendan?
Yeah, I'm self-nominated. My career was prolonged. I wasn't in the same section of pitch as him. This big rugby lad was at the other end of the field, knocking lads over like skittles.
You were forward, were you?
Yeah, I was playing the forwards. Alan was up, I think, centre forward.
I was in the forwards as well, yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't get close to each other, but
under 16.
Yeah. I played with Arville Rovers, and we were a very successful club at the time. We won a lot of football titles, county titles, West titles, and.
Were you good at football?
I don't know. Was I good? I liked it a lot. I was decent, I suppose, decent enough.
Yeah, Brendan, was he any good?
Yeah, he was, at under 16 when you're 6'3", it's a bit of a help, and legs like tree trunks. But I'll tell you, he wasn't too bad now, to be fair. He had good use of himself. You could see though on the rugby pitch, and a lot of the rugby players who played Gaelic and all, it gives them a little bit better skill set in the ball handling and all that kind of thing. So so he was. I suppose you could think that there might be something in.
You're being very nice to me, Brendan.
And you can see I'm stuttering, trying to find.
You're stuttering. He's trying to find moments that I excelled on the field, but I loved the football. I played senior when I was. I played on our senior team when I was 18. So I was kind of just on that transition into the professional game, and I started getting picked in the senior team, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I remember I marked Nicky English one night. Nicky was centre back. I was centre forward. Latin Cullen played Arville Rovers in a West semi-final, and I scored 4 points on Nicky. He was a good footballer, Nicky. Brendan will tell you, Nicky English was a really good footballer as well.
Playing in the defence.
Yeah, Nicky was centre back. So he was such an athlete, and he was so quick, and he was they played. The guys moved around in the junior teams or the senior teams when they went back to their clubs. Obviously, hurling was his first game, but he was a really good footballer as well. But I love football. I think it was brilliant, and I played it all the way through up to you signed the first contract, and that's the end of the GA, unfortunately.
Thanks.
But Brendan's been nice there. I was a bit cumbersome. If I got a bit of space, I wasn't quick underfoot. Definitely not. And
Brendan, what about the time that the lads? I think Babs would have had a fancy for bringing some of the rugby players in to talk to you guys. Did that happen regularly, or was it a trick that pulled out more than once?
No, it was just that the lads are going really well from the Munster side, and obviously all of us, would be looking up to them and what they were doing. And Alan and Dennis Leamy arrived into the horse and jockey one day for words of wisdom. We won on the motivational side of it. I suppose it's probably best we don't say where the whole Babs experience ended up after their motivational speech, but certainly the lads came in, and it was a real help. And I can remember the two of them coming in talking about Munster, talking about, I suppose, trying to establish a brand and how to stay resilient and how they were trying to achieve things. And I think it is important that players from your county who've achieved a lot and have been in dressing rooms where there's been high pressure situations and where they've had to deal with it and they've had to help the group to deal with it. So we would have gotten an awful lot out of it, but it was the first and only time that we had inspirational speakers in. But the lads, to be fair now, we're good now.
I remember Brendan coming in that time, and it was a bit of a tricky time, as you say. I don't know if it was the most harmonious environment because people were pulling in different directions. There was a bit of pressure on Babs.
Did you know that going into it?
Yeah, I did. So I knew that, I was just surprised at the lack of confidence and belief in guys, because I remember we had a chat about how confident you were going into the championship and where you saw yourselves going, and there was a bit of uncertainty with guys. But I think Dennis and myself were just after winning the European Cup, and we'd been on a bit of a journey, as Brendan said. So we were trying to more share, not lecture, but share look, this is where we've come, this is how we've kind of come together as a group. And so, you know, it was a little bit disjointed, and you could sense that, and that everybody was not kind of on side with the management team, and you know, with Babs and John Lahey, and you know, that can make it difficult. But I enjoyed it, and Dennis has been back involved with Tipperary for the last few years, and I think he's a great fella, and obviously they won an All-Ireland the year before last, lost out to Galway this year. So I think that's brilliant from other sports, always sharing. We'd be as intrigued at what the GAA guys are doing.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. We weren't there to kind of go, here, this is how you do it. We were kind of intrigued by how those guys went, because we were fans.
Yeah.
Tipperary guys, we going to all their games as well, you know.
Yeah.
But sorry, just standing on that, it's amazing now that this is the first time really we've spoken about it, that you could sense walking into our room that it wasn't quite right. And I think anybody who's been in elite sport or in a really driven group, you get the sensation that things are right, but you also get as equal a powerful sensation you walk into a group when things are wrong. So it's interesting that you had noticed that, and around that time things were very dampened down within the squad. I remember asking you a question saying how important is it before games to get into a huddle. It was a bit of a loaded question, because we've been told in the previous weeks and months there's to be no huddles before games. There's to be none of that going on out in the pitch. You just go out and line out into your position. So I remember even that day asking that question just to see, and he answered it like any normal sports people would about how important it is to do all that kind of thing. So that's the kind of environment I suppose you were walking into on that evening.
Yeah, and one of the things I would have learned, Brendan, and to be fair, Mick Galway was brilliant at this in that kind of amateur stroke professional scenario. One of the most important things for us when we started out was body language and togetherness, in warm-ups, in arriving at the ground, in being close to each other. And I just sense, I think that was really important. So it's interesting that you say that about, you know, some of the stuff kind of baffled us when we left, that it wasn't as tight and as because we were there as fans. We were there, geez, this is a great honour to be inside.
Babs asked you, did he?
Babs asked us, yeah, and I remember Owen Kelly wasn't there, and I was surprised by that, and Owen wasn't available or something like that, and I was just surprised that everybody wasn't there chomping at the bit. The motivation was there to win, but the elements and different parts of it just didn't seem right. It didn't seem harmonious, and you know, I'd have a lot of respect for Babs and John Lahey as well, but you know, and then you're hearing things on the outside that there's a bit of unrest there, and the players are not happy with Babs, and it's a bit old school, and you know, he shouldn't have come back this time, and all that kind of stuff. And you kind of listen to that because you're a fan as well. So that was really interesting. But you know, I always had that belief, Brendan, that you know, you want players to drive that togetherness, squeezing the hands. You don't, not roaring and shouting, banging heads off walls, but just, you see even a lot of modern sports people, even at top level professional sport, that little bit of a squeeze means you're looking at the guy beside you and that you're going to go to war with him if needs be.
Yeah.
It struck me listening to you there that that was the lowest point, or around then is the lowest point, and it's a miracle that you climb from that, where you're like asking these loaded questions in front of the management team, hoping that they're paying attention and listening to what the answer is, so that you can try and get some rescue from that season. But you climb from there to win All Ireland, like with largely the same bones of the group. From the playing staff, obviously, it's a completely different backroom team, but that's a bit of a miracle.
Well, it's not really like, I mean, like, in fairness to Babs and John Lahey and all at the time, they were all Tipperary people. They were all trying what they could, and people would say that Babs at the time was, he was living back in the 60s, but yet he had Alan and Dennis inside with us, which is a modern move to make for a manager, you know. So, yeah, but then you had Liam Sheedy came on board then, obviously, and things changed. I mean, it just energised all of us. It gave us all a focus. We were all really under the microscope as well under Liam, because if you breathed crooked like Liam knew about it, and in a one-to-one every month, you'd have video analysis of what you did the previous month, your goal setting was sorted out for you. And like as Alan will tell you, if you're trying to be an elite sports person and you're put into a structure like that, you'll respond. And it took us a couple of years to get rid of some of the bad habits we did in 08 and then into 09. And then by the time we got to 10, we were just simply ready to win something. And it's something I said to actually our Ballybacon, the lads down the club the night before the county final. I said it's a bit like 2009 and 10 for us in Tipperary. We looked like at the county final in 2009 in junior against Killadangan, we're going to win it with 7 or 8 minutes left. and then suddenly we lost a 2 or 3 point lead. And it was a bit like that the following year then, you know, I said, look, we're ready to win this thing tomorrow. We're all comfortable in our skin now, so let's just go and do it. And that's exactly the way it was in 2010, the week leading up to the All-Ireland final. We just felt that the pressure was obviously on Kilkenny, but more importantly for us as a group, like Alan said, that extra squeeze in the hand. When you go into the circle, everybody looks each other in the eye, and that for me is the litmus test for any group, that when you go into that huddle, there's nobody looking at the grass, everyone is looking around the circle, and that tells you then that I have all the work done. I can look my teammate in the eye, I can honestly say there's nothing more I could do before this game, and then suddenly you're winning things. And I think that's the transformation that happened in Tipperary over the years with Liam there. He facilitated that, he allowed the players to take ownership of it all, and hey presto, look, we won an All-Ireland.
And that's the key, I think, when you mention it there. We all understand the fundamentals, and be fit, good attitude, character, train well, practice all the weaknesses, all that stuff. But you get to a stage then where you need to be able to look at each other, don't you, like you say, and say, well, it's kind of like the Al Pacino speech, isn't it? To be able to look at the guy next to you and know he'll go that extra inch with you. And that's it. And the intrigue in coaching and getting the best out of guys at elite level, when there's very little difference, is that bit of desire, that bit of togetherness, that bit of fight.
Yeah.
And it does make a difference. And as you say, Brendan, it's game on then. At least you can walk off the field and say, well, we trained well, we're fit. The attitude was good, players made the effort, and look, we got a bit of bad luck on the day, or something went wrong, or maybe we just underperformed, but at least we put ourselves in the position. And that's, you know, I think I followed that story from 06, 07 when Dennis and myself went in, because we, as I said, we'd be fans anyway, up to 2010. And you make a very relevant point. Babs is always going to be a Tip legend, but no matter, sometimes it doesn't work for guys, and you don't get the best out of people. And we see it in some of the modern teams, you know, that little bit of disjointed scenario. And sometimes it's, the more you try, the harder it is.
Yeah.
So I think that's really intriguing, the way you say that stuff changed, and it became more player driven as well, which is what you want.
And we're probably going to see that now, I think. I know it's a conversation maybe for another day, with Pat Gilroy going in with Dublin. He hasn't won 100 All-Ireland medals and managed loads of hurling teams, but he knows how to get the best out of people. He's got a team around him. Anthony Cunningham will obviously do the hurling part, but it's not always about the hurling part. It's about the desire and how you can light up different players and motivate different players and look at them as individuals that can feed into the collective. And I think that was the skill that Liam Sheedy had. You know, he didn't take any of the training sessions. Eamon O'Shea did that, but by God, when a player got in front of Eamon O'Shea, there was a fire in his belly, a set of goals in his head, and knowing there was consequences if he didn't meet him. And I think that's what Gilroy is going to bring to this Dublin setup. And it's going to be interesting to watch and see how that develops in the coming months, because I'm sure as a people person, as a driver of people, he's just top notch.
Brendan, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. You've been great with your time. Best of luck this weekend.
Brendan.
No problem at all, guys. Thanks very much.
Hey, hope you enjoyed that latest offering from Off the Ball. If you want to subscribe, and you should, check out just up here. All our latest stuff is just down here. Generally, knock yourself out.